In today's video, I'm going to show you step-by-step instructions on how to make one of these ignition bypass ghost button cables. In an earlier video, we took a look at the wireless ignition box that helps power our Evolution Cart D5s as well as the DMaxes. You'll see something like this underneath your dash, and this is what listens to the wireless signal from the key fob. Online, there's a lot of people in the forums who say that their keys constantly act up and they run into troubles with it. We also found that it was relatively easy to bypass this ignition and hotwire the cart using a single piece of wire, plugging it into the ignition connector. And the other thing that I hear all the time when I'm looking at the Facebook groups and forums is people looking for a way to keep their radio on longer. They don't want it to automatically turn off after 15 minutes or so. So in this video, you will learn how to build this ghost cable that will go to our secret button, and it will solve all three of those problems for about $10. We have $20 worth of parts to order on Amazon, and that could build you 2 cables. So if you have a friend, you could build them one as well. So let's get to it, and I'll show you all the pieces you need and how you make this cable and actually how it solves all 3 of those problems. The items we're going to use for today's build will cost you about $20 on Amazon, and again, that's enough to make 2 harnesses. This is an ATX 10-pin extension cable. So use the exact link to the one I have in the description because it might take a little bit of time to come. I think mine took about 5 days, but when it arrived, it fits perfect. And what that's going to do is allow us to plug directly in to the back of our Evolution Cart wireless ignition box without having to splice any of our factory harness. So if you ever wanted to take this out, you could just pull it out and nobody would ever know it was there. So no splicing of the factory harness. This ATX 10-pin extension cable helps us a lot with that. And again, you're going to get 2. The next thing you're going to need is a button or a switch. And so what I've gone with is an on-off-on switch. So that lets us execute 3 different modes that we are trying to set up. In the middle, it would be off. So that would be disabled. No one's going to be able to use our cart, start the cart, or hotwire the cart when it's in the middle off position. When we go to position 1, what that's going to allow is the wireless ignition to work like normal. So you would need the key, you would need to use the key to unlock it, and position 1 is going to be normal operation. Position 2, we're going to set up to be bypass mode, and that will bypass the ignition, start the cart, and run it without a timeout. So if you want to listen to music for 2 or 3 hours, you could put it in bypass mode. If you've lost your key or your key's acting up, you could put it in bypass mode. So with this on-off-on switch, we're able to do 3 modes with 1 button. You'll get a ton of buttons. They also come with the pre-wired leads. And so there's a few of these out there that look similar, but make sure you use the link again to get this one. This one's nice and round, so it will slide into a round hole, a 20-millimeter hole. So those are the 2 things you will definitely need, and the rest of the stuff might be optional, but I'll show you what I got. So most of these other things you probably already have. A drill, we're going to use a normal drill bit to do a pilot hole for our button. These step drill bits are extremely handy. These buttons are 20 millimeters wide, so you'll need a step drill bit that goes up to about a 20-millimeter hole, and those are amazing for drilling holes in plastic. So if you don't have one of those, it might be worthwhile getting one because it just makes the job much easier. We have some solderless wire connectors, and these are amazing. You just apply heat, and it does a really clean job in helping us connect multiple wires together in a clean way. And then some shrink tube. So these kits are both available on Amazon, $10 and $14. Again, as I said before, not all shrink tube is the same. Look for a 3-to-1 shrink ratio. And this is a great kit that comes with 400 pieces, various sizes. You can even cut them in half to do smaller pieces. But if you don't have something like this, it would be in the garage already. It would be worth grabbing just to do a clean job. Some wire cutters, some scissors if we want to cut our shrink tube, a heat source to shrink our tubes and our connectors, either a lighter or a torch or a heat gun, and some electrical tape. So you probably have all of that stuff, but if you want to use the exact same ones that I did, I'll put the links in the description below. All right, the first thing we're going to open up is this 10-pin ATX cable. So this is going to make our life so much easier because we don't need to pin it. We don't need to do all of the individual connectors. This is essentially a straight pass through. So what we're going to end up doing with this is, as you can see, the end with the hook here will plug directly into the back of our ignition module. So this is going to be our new end that we make, and we're going to extend the existing cable with this other end. So data is gonna, and power and all of the logic is going to come in this way, and then this end is gonna go into the back of our ignition box. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna look at the back of the side that has the tab on the top, and we're gonna choose this top right wire coming out of the back. Now this wire is the constant 48 volt coming from the battery, which feeds into our ignition module. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut this somewhere near the middle. Just gonna cut it in half like this. Okay. The next thing we're gonna do is we're just going to strip the wire down a little bit, give ourselves about 1/2 inch to play with on either side. Let's just strip that back. All right, perfect. So now we have that wire stripped on both sides. Inside the bag of buttons that you get off Amazon, it's actually really nice of them to include the pre-cut and pre-crimped on connectors. And they give us 3 colors, a red, a yellow, and a black. And so the color scheme that we're gonna use to build ours is we're gonna use black as that constant incoming power. And so what we want to do with that is we will end up wiring it in on the non-pin side. So the side that is gonna go into the adapter, we're gonna have 48 volts coming out of here, and we're gonna use the black end on this side here. So I'm gonna put these two together. Okay, and before we twist things together, we are going to get one solderless crimp connector as well as a heat shrink tube that's about the right size. I'm gonna slide these over top of the wire before we thread it together. So I'm just gonna twist this quick. We will slide this over top of the wire, and we will also slide the shrink tube over top of both. And then this way we have everything on here that we will need. We're going to go back again to this side here, and we are going to thread these together. I'm just going to twist these together, nice and tight, fold it flat. We're going to pull the shrink tube across, okay? And you're gonna want that solder to sit right between the two. And then we will heat this, and then when that's done, we will slide our shrink tube over top of it and heat that. Okay, the next thing we're gonna do is we are going to set up a red wire in the exact same way with a solderless connector, a heat shrink tube, and we are going to attach this to the other end of the wire we cut, this time the end with the hook on the top. So let's twist these together, fold it flat, push our solderless connector across. And again, we're making sure that the solder sits right on top of that seam, and we have our shrink tube ready for when we're done. Okay, I'm just going to heat these two up and seal them up now. All right, and after you heat it, you can see that the solder melts right inside of there. There's also some glue here that helps really hold these in place, so it's really quite good. We're going to slide this heat shrink tube over the top of both now, and it just gives it one more layer of protection. Sometimes I find these can get a little bit flexible, and this good shrink tube also has some glue on the inside, and this will really seal it in there. All right, so we already have mode 1 complete. So what this will do is when it is within our rocker switch, the black wire is going to go to the center, and mode 1, when you push the switch this way, it actually connects the opposite side together. So these two will be together. So mode 1 is operate like usual. We will connect the black wire to the center, and the red wire to this left-hand side, the one under number 2. So mode 1 will be work like usual, and that will connect this as it used to be, and it will allow the wireless ignition to function. So now it's time to figure out how we wire mode 2. Mode 2 is going to be our bypass mode that allows us to bypass the wireless ignition if anything goes wrong, or if we want unlimited time on our radio or on our accessories without it cutting off. So to do that, we're going to look at the end with the pin on it from the front, or let's look from the back, and we are going to take the bottom right wire coming out of the back of the one with the pin. Now this is the wire we want to send load to tell the cart to turn on in bypass mode. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go around near the middle, and we're going to cut this wire in half, and then I'm also going to strip back both of the ends about 1/2 inch or so. Let's just do this to give ourselves some area to work with. All right. Now, what we're going to do with this one is we are going to wire it to our yellow end. So in this situation, since we're going to do 3 wires together, I'm going to choose a slightly larger heat shrink tube, and then we're going to get them all wired up together. Okay, so I have my heat shrink tube ready for us already on one side, and on the other side I have the 2 wires going through and the solderless connector already on here. So let's get everything lined up, and we will twist these all together. One nice tight bundle. Okay. Then we will slide our connector over top, and again, make sure that that solder is right in the middle of the joint. We're going to heat this up and seal it all together. All right, and like that, I used the solderless connector followed by a heat shrink tube, just like on the other ones. We now have our mode 2 switch, which is the bypass mode. So when we bypass by passing power between these two, we will bypass the wireless ignition box. When we pass power between these two in mode 1, the ignition box will work like usual. And when the switch is in the off position, these two are disconnected and no one can start or move the cart in any capacity. So the cable is essentially finished. We're going to clean it up with a little bit of electrical tape. And the other thing I did on my other connector is what we want to make sure is that these little plastic ends that come on with the cables, they do slide off sometimes. So when it vibrates, this can end up sliding down and leaving the connector exposed. These connectors sit relatively close to each other on the back of the switch, and the last thing we really want is this moving and creating an opportunity for them to bump against each other. So what I did on our other switch is I just cut some heat shrink tube in half, slid it over the base of each of these, and heated them up. And this heat shrink is great. Again, a 3-to-1 shrink with some glue on the inside. And this really holds those connector covers on for us. And so I think I'm going to do the exact same thing to my switch, or my new connector that we're building right now before we tape it up and are ready to move to the next step. All right, that looks better. So we got the heat shrink on the tips, and this is going to keep those little plastic grommets from going anywhere and staying nice and put. I'm going to take one last piece of heat shrink tube, put it over top of all 3 of these. Let's just do this. We want to leave some exposed so we're able to see which color our wires are on the other side when we connect it to the button. But I'm going to just pull them out about as straight as we can get them, and then heat shrink this migration point right here. And then we'll tape up the rest of the adapter. All right, perfect. So that just holds those 3 together so that they're nice and tight. These will go through to our button, and I'm going to wrap this with electrical tape to just make it look like a sealed unit, kind of like our other one over here. So over on the cart, we're going to take it for a test run now. To remove your glove box, you simply open the lid, and there's 2 screws, one here and one here, which you will undo. They're Phillips screws, and so then you can pull your glove box out. Your wireless ignition module is down on the right side. It'll be a little box that sometimes has sticky tape and it's stuck to the bottom. I'm just gonna pull it out here. So there it is. The other way to locate it is to follow the cable from the start button. So the start button will have a lead, and follow that lead as well, and it goes into the back of the ignition module. You may need to wiggle it a little bit, but it should pop right out. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the harness from the back of the ignition module, and we are going to grab our new harness that we just made and plug it in. All right, the next thing to do is to find a secret location for this switch. The best spot I was thinking was going to be inside the glove box. This is going to be handy because what we can do is actually, these glove boxes obviously have a key lock. So if you ever did want to extra lock it with a physical key, we could hide access to our ghost switch. We're going to go up on the inside here and drill our hole through the side of the glove box and mount the switch up in here on the left-hand side. It's a good spot because the cable's nice and short and it has clearance between this and the glove box. It's also pretty hidden and pretty secret, so I'm gonna do that now. All right, and like that, we now have a 20mm hole in the inside of our glove box, which also gives us access right here. So let's push the button in and wire it up. All right, you can see there we've got our switch wired up by plugging in our 3 connectors after pushing it through the hole. Now we will plug our ignition module back in. All right, and like that, we put the glove box back in place, and we have our secret ghost switch hidden inside the glove box. Right now it's in position 1, which makes the cart work just like a normal cart. So you use the ignition to start it up. It's using the wireless ignition, and you would have your 15-minute timeout before the cart turns back off. If you decided that you were going to park it somewhere long-term, or you wanted to keep your cart from being used by your kids or your neighbors, or it was parked out in the street in a weird spot, all you would have to do is open your glove box, put that switch into the middle position, and while it's in this middle position, no one is going to be able to figure out how to start your cart. If they pull the plug out of the back of the ignition module and attempt to do that standard hot wire, it will not work either because they won't know that we have an extension going on and we've actually extended that. Now, no cart is completely unthieveable. It just has to be harder to steal than your neighbor's cart or an average cart. So it does add a little bit of disguise to the standard way to bypass the ignition, but it is not bypass proof. So the last mode is mode 2. So if we decide we want to use our cart as a stereo system and we want it to run indefinitely, essentially until the battery is completely drained, you would push it forward into mode 2. If you lost your keys, you could also use this mode to bypass the ignition system if you were having trouble with your wireless key fob. So that is the 3-mode ghost switch, which is hidden inside of the glove box. It's kind of a good spot for it because, as we said, you can always use your key to lock it in there. So even if somebody is looking around and trying to get at it, they might not even know that it is there. While the cart is in mode 2 or the position bypass mode, you're unable to use the power button to turn the cart off either. So you have to remember when it's time to turn your cart off, you put it back in fully off or back in mode 1, which would be your standard ignition mode. Well, I hope that helps you guys. If you're interested in building something like this, it really doesn't take that much time. It's a kind of cool 3-mode bypass switch. And if you have any suggestions or recommendations or things that we should do different, let me know. But thanks again for following along. And we should have some more videos coming out soon about audio systems, how to tap into the head unit if you wanted to add an amplifier or subwoofer or things like that coming up soon too. So thanks again, and be sure to subscribe.